Colorado Buffaloes just landed one of the best defensive linemen in the transfer portal. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Welcome to Locked On Buffs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the business. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and make sure to follow along so you could keep up with all things Colorado. Let's talk about the top defensive lineman they landed in the portal last night. It was late last night. It was super late. They also added a couple of linebackers today, and then they also hired a new coach who I think most people are assuming is their new tight ends coach. But we'll have to wait for confirmation on that role, but I'll get to that in a little bit. Let's talk transfer portal additions. So the Buffs have been, I would say, handling the portal really well. You obviously, if you don't know, they need 50-ish people, right? And that's a lot. They lost around 30 to the portal, and now they're bringing in dude after dude, right? And so they're already at 15 portal additions, and they're going all over the country to get some of these guys, right? They have a very clear target in mind. They don't have a single Power 4 transfer at this time. They've all come from the Group of 5 or FCS level. Now that can change with DeAndre Moore and CJ Baxter, who are both expected to be on campus this week, and I think would both be great additions. But clearly Colorado is going all in on guys who are proven at the G5 FCS level. And so they went out and landed a guy who on 3 ranked as the number 2 defensive lineman in the portal by the name of Santana Hopper. Now, Hopper over here, outside of having a great name, like just 2 electric first name, electric last name, he is viewed as one of the best players in the country. 80.5 run defense grade, 80.5 defensive grade, 72.9 run defense grade, pass rush grade of 81.4, and a coverage grade of 67.8. Don't know who he's covering, but he's got a coverage grade. But he's a guy that started his career at App State, was all Sun Belt there. He had 29 total tackles this past season, 4.5 sacks, 10.5 tackles for a loss, and he had 39 quarterback pressures in this past season, the second most among defensive tackles. And so he is a guy that will probably start right away. He has 100 career total tackles, 25.5 total tackles for a loss over his career, and 13 sacks. And you look at what Colorado was this past year in the interior, the defensive line in general, they were a travesty. They were constantly getting torched by running quarterbacks. They couldn't get any pressure on the quarterback. I think the best way to really put into words or numbers of how bad they are is just taking a look at where they ranked in sacks and run defense. Starting with run defense, the Buffs were one of the worst in the country. They ranked 132nd in opponents' rushing yards per game, allowing 225. The only programs who were worse were Georgia Southern, North Texas, Eastern Michigan, and UMass. So not really the company that you want to keep over there. And then they also, in terms of sacks, where they led the Big 12 the year prior, they were, they were terrible this year. They only had 13. They went from 30 plus sacks leading the Big 12 to 13 sacks as a team. And that's just not going to get it done. And I think the hard part about Colorado's defense was they had this bend, don't break mentality, but they were breaking more often than not. And so I'm very excited about the audition of Santana Hopper. He's 6'2", 265, so a little bit undersized, but I mean, Tredozi Nwankwo has proven like, hey, undersized can work out, especially when a guy's as proven as he is. And so for Colorado, you get a couple more people to go around him. And I mean, they're not done yet. Even they've landed Tyler Moore from Coastal Carolina, another defensive lineman. So of their class, right? We'll just walk through their class because I'm very excited about Santana Hopper. I think he's a guy that could start right away, and he's a guy that, think of what Jaheim Otis was expected to be. I think he will be the expectations for Jaheim Otis instead of the result of Jaheim Otis. And so Colorado right now has 15 transfers that they've brought in. They've brought in 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers. The rest are edge, safety, defensive line, linebacker, edge, linebacker, defensive line, linebacker, defensive line, right? So they've an overwhelming amount of their portal classes, an overwhelming amount of their portal class thus far has been the front seven, which, as I said countless times throughout the weeks leading up to the transfer portal, you need to address the front seven, right? You needed new coaches, which they got a new linebackers coach. It sounds like Warren Stapp still in the building based on an interview I heard. And it's just one of those things where like the front seven was horrendous. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. They were sloppy with assignments. Frequently, like you could just tell, like it didn't seem like guys knew what they were supposed to do. Like on read option plays, there was no contain. It was like they were just constantly chasing the ball rather than doing what their job was actually supposed to be. And so if you're Colorado, you have to or if you're a Colorado fan, you have to love where they're going with this portal class right now. And I think the linebacker additions that they made today may excite more people than Santana Hopper, which is crazy. But Colorado has nailed the portal thus far. So it's like you have to be really proud of the effort that Deion Sanders and his staff are putting in, because I do think there was a lot of people who were questioning his effort. There was a lot of people questioning how bought in he was. And I think right now he is nailing the portal. And I call him the king of the transfer portal. Right now, I feel like he is showing why he holds that crown. So huge addition in Santana Hopper. Let's learn about the two linebackers that could be the difference for Colorado this next season. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you could grow your savings. I'm a first-time homeowner, getting married in a few months. Obviously, we're trying to save as much as we can. And I was shocked when Rocket Money showed me I was paying for so many subscriptions for the same sort of app or like same sort of vibe. Where it's like, okay, you have 3 streaming services and you don't use 2 of them, right? It's like, it's already saved me some money. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. We're also doing this cool thing over at Locked On called the Everydayer Club. So we appreciate you for making Locked On Buffs your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You have access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Buffs. It's compatible with Apple, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. There's an invite-only members Locked On Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of the show. So if you're interested, go check them out over at lockedonbuffs.supercast.com. You could pay the $5 monthly fee or save 17% if you're billed annually, which comes out to $4.17 per month. So do yourself a favor and go become a Locked On, or excuse me, go join our Locked On Everydayer Club. Let's talk linebackers. Colorado had 2 of the worst. Well, I don't want to say 2 of the worst players in the country, but we'll just say they had the worst linebacker group in the Big 12 and probably in the country. Today, they go out and land a linebacker by the name Gideon Espion, or excuse me, I'm excited to say his last name, Gideon Espion Lampron from Bowling Green, who is one of the better linebackers in the country. He's a guy that, he's accomplished just about everything you can. He, outside of having a great name, by the way, like how often do you have someone whose middle name is Ian? He's a guy that you look at the stats and quite frankly, he stuffs the stat sheet. He recorded 119 tackles this season. This season alone, 119 tackles, 17 and a half tackles for a loss, 2.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 to pass deflection. He was all MAC first team. Also all first team name, a little bit undersized. And I think that part will be interesting. And we'll see if Colorado brings in a couple more linebackers, because I do think they need to bring in 3 to 4 more guys just to, you never know who's going to get injured. You never know who's going to work out, who's not. I mean, we saw the problem last year. But again, just absolute stud. He stands in at 6 foot 220, so a little bit small there. In terms of another linebacker, well, let me give you his PFF grade, by the way. Graded out as the 26th linebacker in college football, 86.4 defensive grade, 84.5 run defense grade. Let me repeat that. 84.5, and then he could also rush the quarterback at 81.8. So really, really nice addition there. I don't know how I envision him just based on the schools that were interested in him. He had a little bit of, I guess you call it, some G5 interest, where it's like Toledo and Tulane or stuff like that, where it's like, okay, why is he not attracting bigger names? And the next linebacker they brought in, Tyler Martinez, he had an injury this year, so he only played, I think it was 4 games, and he decided to redshirt. But you look at what Tyler Martinez has done throughout his career, and I think he's this is a nice 1-2 combo. Let's put it that way. He had 143 total tackles in his career, 3.5 tackles for a loss, interception over the past couple of years, was over at New Mexico State. So another G5 guy. Something that's interesting that Brian Howell pointed out on Twitter, or X, excuse me, was that of the, I guess it's growing now, of the 15 guys that Colorado's brought in, they've brought in 8 guys who have earned all conference honors this season, right? 8. So they're clearly looking for guys who are proven. They're clearly looking for guys who it's like, okay, we're not chasing after the former 4-star recruit who didn't do anything. We're chasing after the guys who are hungry, looking for a chance to prove they could play at the next level, looking for a chance to continue their career at the NFL level. And he's an Albuquerque, New Mexico native, so he stayed home. But I mean, in 2024, he had 94 total tackles, a pass deflection, a sack. He's all over the place. And he's a little bit bigger at 6'2", 225 in terms of weight. And so I expect Colorado to add a couple more linebackers, but I like what they're doing on defense. I do. They are keyed in on guys who are productive at the lower levels, and there's nothing wrong with that. They also have a linebacker by the name of Emmanuel Ezekiel, I believe is how you say it. I'm probably butchering that, and I apologize to him. Coming over from James Madison. So you're at 3 linebackers, and I think the vision is clear to me. I'll put it that way. Now, Emmanuel, a little bit inexperienced. He only played in 8 games, and clearly wasn't the key guy for James Madison. But anyone in that Bob Chesney defense, I mean, you have to assume they're going to, by osmosis, bring in some good habits and some good practices. He's listed at 6'2", 240, according to ESPN. He had 15 total tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble. So Colorado's loading up on linebacker. I think they'll get a couple more, but I'm really liking where this defense is headed. You have to rebuild the entire unit just simply because you lost everyone. But I think you're bringing in guys who are hungry, guys who care. And I think that's what Colorado was missing last year, was guys were hungry-ish, but their appetite was quickly erased when they got what they wanted, or when it was like, okay, we're just not a good team, so we're just going to give up, right? Colorado's team gave up last year, and based on the guys that they're bringing in, where it's like some of these guys are probably just happy to have an opportunity to play at the Power 4 level and play college football in general, I don't think that's going to be an issue again next season. So we're going to take another quick break, but we're going to take another quick break. And not before we do. We're not going to talk about what's next before we do. We're going to talk about Colorado's new coach and what he brings to the table. But like I said, the quick break. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Also, thank you for making Locked on Buffs and Locked on Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the business. Let's talk coaching changes. In a surprising move, Deion Sanders dipped into the high school ranks and brought along one of the most experienced and proven high school coaches in the country. His name is Josh Niblett. He won 45 games in 4 seasons as the head coach at Georgia's Gainesville High School. It's not in Gainesville, Florida. Confusing, I know. He also helped them appear in the 5A state championship twice, has 300 career wins, as he also coached in Alabama at the high school level. So you're getting a guy who has a very good understanding of the South. And their athletic director said, Coach Niblett's impact on our program, our school, and our community over the last 4 years cannot be overstated. He's brought a championship culture and a tireless work ethic every single day. He says, while we're sad to see him go, we are incredibly grateful for the foundation he has built and wish him and his family nothing but the best in the next chapter. Now, the lone position open is obviously the tight ends coach, because Brett Bartolone is going to go be the offensive coordinator for Nevada. So the expectation is that Niblett will be the tight ends coach for Colorado. And I like this. He brings in a connection of like, hey, he knows the South, right? He knows the areas that Colorado wants to recruit. He knows the schools, the players, and all that. And so it's one of those things where if you're Deion Sanders or someone who supports Colorado, you have to applaud this hire by Deion Sanders. I guess you could applaud it if you're Deion Sanders, but then you'd be applauding yourself. But Colorado has long lacked the amount of staffers who care about recruiting, right? One of the biggest issues they had with some of the people who were either fired and or demoted was that they could not care less about building relationships with programs or with high school programs, right? One of the people who was expected to be in charge of that seem to have issues doing that. And so now you bring in a guy like Niblett who understands Georgia and Alabama. I mean, let's just look at the top recruits in Georgia right now. Because, I mean, you have Julian Lewis for sure. You have so many top recruits that come from the state of Georgia. You know which guys are sort of like, or you know which programs to. I mean, he coached Xavier Griffin, which was the number one linebacker in the state of Georgia, right? LaDamian Guyton, he was at one point the number one player in the country before he reclassified, right? He has so many where it's like, okay, this guy's high school was popping off, right? This guy knows what he's doing in terms of understanding, like Jamarian Matthews, another Alabama commit, 4-star defensive lineman. Aiden Kane, defensive lineman, 3-star, right? Who's going to Duke. Crew Molador, I believe is how you say it, 3-star offensive lineman, right? He's going to Tulsa, or excuse me, Caden Fosung is going to Tulsa, an edge rusher, right? They have so many guys where they're producing nothing but top tier talent. And now they have a guy who has an in, right? Even some of the bigger names in this class outside of the number one linebacker in this class are from Georgia, right? LaDamian Guyton was from Savannah. Jordan Edmonds, a DB from Marietta, Georgia. Tristan Givens, he's going to Texas A&M. From Columbus, Georgia. Tyler Atkinson, linebacker. He's going to he's from Loganville, Georgia. He's going to Texas. Caden Prothro, tight end. He's from Bowden, going to Georgia, right? Deuce Gerald, Collins Hill, Georgia, from high school, I guess. Swanee, going to LSU, right? There are so many talented players in the state of Georgia. And then you just look at Alabama. He also has roots there. Anthony Jones, the number 19 player in the country, number one edge rusher. He's from Oregon, or he's going to Oregon. He's from Alabama. Xavier Crowell, top running back in the country. Sadarian Morgan, top wide receiver in the country. Zion Gibson, top corner. Like, there are so many talented guys. Emmanuel Ruffin, an Alabama guy as well. Obviously, Colorado had him committed at one point. They lost him. Vodney Cleveland, same thing, right? So this is clearly a pipeline that Colorado wants to establish. And I think by adding Niblett, they're going to establish those pipelines even more, and they're going to strengthen Colorado as a whole. Because I think with Brennan Marion, he's a great recruiter. With Brennan Marion, Niblett, I think Marv has done pretty well in the linebackers that he's attracting to the program. Colorado is sort of mixing things up and being like, okay, you know what? We have to recruit better. We have to have access to these states, right? The IMG pipeline can only get us so far if we're only bringing in a couple guys per year. So huge sort of addition from Deion Sanders. I don't think his coaching hires have really gotten enough attention as of late, but if I'm being honest, I was kind of concerned about his coaching staff. But now you look at it, and I think Deion Sanders has really turned around who he's putting around him. And that was sort of my main advice, was like, hey, only put people around you who care about your, I guess, the development of your program, right? So like this coaching staff has flipped. You have Robert Livingston coordinating the defense again, and I think he's going to have better talents and probably be able to sort of adjust more. You have Brendan Marion, the offense coordinator. You have Gunnar White coaching up the offensive line, and he's going to return a chunk of his guys. You have Coach Marv coaching the linebackers. You have Johnny Mack, the new running backs coach. Like you're mixing things up, and I think it's going to work out a lot better for people than for Coach Prime than people realize. So really nice hire here from Coach Prime. We'll see if it pays its dividends in the recruiting ranks. But either way, I'm Kevin Borba, host of Locked On Buffs. We have a very exciting interview coming up, and you guys won't want to miss it. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I'll just say this. It's a new buff. I'll put it out there like that. I think you guys will really enjoy it. So it was a fun episode to record. I'll see all of you all tomorrow. This has been Locked On Buffs.